Welcome to the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. It's Matthew with you here right through to the end of the episode because that's how podcast episodes work. I mean, it'd be a bit weird if it got to the end of the episode and I just kind of hung around for another 10 minutes in your ear, wouldn't it? Anyway, on this episode, we have the return of Mr. Goblin Green Bases himself, Josh from the Crown of Command podcast. Josh has a movement of 4, weapon skill of 3, ballistic skill of 3, strength 3, toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 3, attacks 1, and leadership 7. Now that we've got his stats out the way though, let's dive into the chat itself and find out what Josh is painting at the moment.
Mate, I've been doing a lot of Rackham stuff, actually, for Confrontation. I don't know if you're aware of that particular, long out-of-print rule set and miniature range and that kind of thing out of France, but...
No, I'm not familiar with that at all.
Oh, you're not? Okay. Well, yeah, it's kind of one of these underground games that became popular, I guess. They sort of started in 96, which I was totally unaware of. And it started in France in a very small company, like a garage company type of thing, like 2 guys setting it up. And I sort of just found about the history about it just recently with one of the guys on the Discord who's like an ex-employee there. Really interesting sort of stuff, how it all started up. Basically, it was like an ex-Games Workshop guy. He started up the company. That's Jean Bay, the guy who's behind the whole thing behind Rackham. And he started it up, and basically he released his own range of miniatures. He wanted it to be like the Apple of the miniature world, like everything would be perfect, everything to the highest standard, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it really changed the whole face of the miniature gaming scene kind of thing in terms of painting, in terms of miniature design, artwork, everything. The production levels just way above everything else.
So what's that called, sorry?
It's called Confrontation. I'll send you some links to it, but from photographs and that kind of thing. Basically, when they released it, and the marketing idea was that they would sell the miniatures in a blister pack, and in the blister pack you would actually find the rule book. The rule book would be there's tiny little booklets. So when you buy your miniature, you open it up, you get the miniature in the base and that kind of thing, and the card, like a stat card kind of thing, showing it's all its attributes and the equipment it takes and the skills that it has and that kind of thing. And then in that blister, you have a little booklet, and one's like the rule book, and then if you buy another miniature, you might have something like incantation or divination. One's got things for use for doing campaigns and that kind of thing. So that was first and second edition of Confrontation. Then it got into third edition, became like a hardcover book, and it became much more commercially viable because people would actually buy it and get all the rules in one sort of text. And that's sort of where I came into it at that sort of stage. And they had a board game out for it and everything, that kind of thing. And then they brought out AT-43, which is probably the most popular one. And then the company slowly went bankrupt just due to mismanagement and that kind of thing. But they produced some of the most beautiful, 28 millimeter metal miniatures the world has ever seen. So,
I need to get a wee look at that. Yeah, as if I need anything else to be looking at. Anything else to be drawing my attention towards.
Indeed.
You've been getting much games or anything in recently?
I haven't, mate. No, because I have actually. To be honest, I've done some remote gaming with a friend of mine, Johannes, from the Flayless Skulls podcast. You know Johannes, don't you?
I've heard his podcast a couple of times. Yeah.
He's a really nice guy, and we've sort of caught up online doing remote games on a Sunday, playing A Song of Ice and Fire, which is another game system, a current game system I'm into at the moment as well, and really enjoying that as it's kind of like a living rulebook type game where the rules are basically a PDF you can download, and they sort of, when they have a big tweak and they want to change the rules or there's something they need to change to the armies, they just update it on their app. So there's none of this kind of, there's a new edition and you got to buy a new box set, you got to buy all the new books and that kind of thing. There's nothing like that. Everything's basically at your fingertips. It's all free. You can just, upload it onto your application on your phone, and you've got all the armies, all the stat cards, everything there. So I've been slowly introducing Johannes to A Song of Ice and Fire. He's really enjoying it. He's kicking my ass. He's whipped my ass 4 times in a row now, which is quite pathetic, but from me anyway, from my standpoint. But really enjoying that. That's set in the A Song of Ice and Fire, the George R. Martin kind of, Game of Thrones world, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I'm a massive fan of the TV show, but I've never read the books, but the whole game's based on the books and that kind of thing and all the characters in it. But, that's, I got that as a Kickstarter. It's probably the best Kickstarter I've ever bought, as it's been like a long-term investment in, terms of replayability, and the gameplay is really good, and it's evolving and it's changing. And, so I've been playing that, mate. But apart from that, I've not played anything. I've not played Warhammer for a long time. Again, it's just a case of, people to play with, and I think remote gaming's becoming more and more of a viable option now.
Do you you're pretty prolific with the content you're putting out, like your podcast and YouTube and that? Do you find that gets in the way of your painting and gaming, or is that maybe the opportunity isn't there to game, so you're as well recording a podcast or something like that instead?
Good question. I think in terms of editing, I think editing takes up a lot of my time. So like I did this painting tutorial on a high off horse recently, and I've got to film that in stages as I'm painting it, and then after that it's all post production, putting it into iMovie and then editing everything, doing the voiceovers and that kind of thing. That kind of stuff takes a lot of time away from doing hobby and that kind of stuff. So I try to pull like a video out each week if I can, and try to get the podcast out. Now it's like in a fortnightly release, not a weekly release. I think it was just too much in the end, and it's like other stuff going on. And I think basically people are sort of getting back into the swing of things in terms of like going out and socializing again, and playing games physically with people. So I can sense that in the community, even though we're sort of growing, and like Discord and the Facebook group are getting more and more people through, which is great to see. But I think the level of interactivity between people is becoming less and less, because people are just getting out there and playing games and that kind of stuff. So I feel really happy about that. That's the most important thing. I mean, like people actually playing games and seeing photographs of them playing stuff is great. That's far more important than me, releasing videos and that kind of stuff. But I enjoy doing it. But yeah, it does take a lot of time. As you know, you're a podcaster yourself, mate. So that sort of the post-production type time, that takes away from family and your hobby time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, aye. It's just something you've got to get through as part of it, isn't it? I found like doing the podcast and running the blog, it's integrated pretty well into what I'm doing, because I quite like the fact that in the rare occasion where I've been getting a game, like we've been playing Rangers of Shadow Deep, so a big part of that is the preparation for the game, and I could talk about that on the show, and I could post photos of what I'm up to on the blog, and then when we play the game, we could record some audio from the game, we could talk about what happened, and then I could post photos of it. So I quite enjoy how that's built in. I don't feel like it's taken away from anything, if that makes sense. Like, I just feel it's a good part of it. I'd be chatting about that stuff anyway, and it's just nice that I suppose a couple of hundred people want to maybe listen into it. And even if it wasn't that many, it's still pretty cool, to be just creating something around it that sticks.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I mean, you're doing it because you enjoy doing it. I mean, if we didn't enjoy doing it, we wouldn't do it. And I've always said that if it ever felt like I was working when I'm doing it, I'll just quit. I'll be happy to walk away, because looking at it now, and maybe you feel the same. Like it's at a stage now where I think it's sort of just growing itself. Like, your Discord or your Facebook group, your blog, whatever it might be, it will just evolve and people will take over it and take care of it. and that's where it needs to be. Because one person can't singly do everything. It's just too much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we're sort of out of that whole lockdown. Well, we've never been in lockdown, but in Europe and all that kind of thing was quite serious, and Australia was quite serious, where people sort of cocooned in their own homes and they were going out of their minds. But now it's all changed and things are slowly getting back to normal, thank goodness.
Yeah, aye.
And these kind of people are prioritizing their time differently, and they're focusing on different areas, which is really good. But yeah, no, it's been fun, mate. It's been a really fun ride, though. Like the last couple of years have been amazing. Like I was talking to Chris in the States, and he sent me a message saying, thanks a lot for doing all the videos and podcasts. It's been really good because he had no one to play with. Basically, he had all these games. He's got Warhammer, he's got Blood Bowl, he's got Man of War, he's got Space Hulk Second Edition. He's got all these games, all the miniatures painted, Necromunda and everything, you name it, he's got it. But he's got no one to actually play with. But now he's doing the remote gaming. He's connecting with people through the Discord. And now he's got a regular sort of session like every weekend. He's hooking up with someone from Germany or me, myself in Japan or whoever it might be, and playing games. And he's really, really happy. So, I mean, if I made one person happy or a couple of people happy by doing this thing, I mean, that's rewarding in itself, I think.
Mm-hmm. I like a sort of miniature hobby podcast if I'm doing a bit of painting or that. Kind of gives you the wee kick up the bum to keep going, especially maybe stick it on if I know I'm going to try and paint in the next 10 minutes or that, and suddenly it gets you much more in the mood. Because a lot of the time with painting it's just to getting started, and then once you're into the swing of it, you enjoy it. But I do find that sometimes there's just a wee barrier in actually getting started. I don't know if that's just me or if that's quite a common thing with folk.
Yeah, getting the motivation is a big thing. I think that sort of bounces off other people as part of social media. You see people doing certain things. I mean, I'm hopeless. I mean, someone mentions a word of a game system and I'm sort of like, off on a tangent. I've sort of just, dropped something and started something else because of that, because you sort of just, you're feeding off the energy and enthusiasm of others. So that's kind of what really drives us in our hobby. If people are really getting behind something, you want to be part of that as well. And you sort of pick up their momentum and carry on with that. So I'm guess you're like me, Matthew, in that you've got like several projects and several different painting projects and several different games you want to get on the table at some point. But it's good to hear that you're playing regularly now with this is it Rangers of Shadow Deep you're playing?
Yeah, we've been playing through that. So hopefully next month, time of recording, that'll be August. Hopefully we're playing the next one. I've still got 5 or 6 miniatures on my list that need to be painted before then. But I like that as well. I like that achievable aim where you get the stuff done and you know that the game's coming up. You're working towards it. Just all part of quite a rewarding process, I find.
Yeah, me too, mate. I've got to have the games lined up to get me the targets I need to get to paint and get stuff done. Like with the confrontation stuff, I've got stuff here that's been sitting here. Like I've owned it since 2006, 2008, 2010, that kind of thing. And I've just been carrying it around and thinking, oh, I'll eventually get to that project. But now it's sort of like now I'm actually going to play games, and it's motivated me to get stuff done. The challenges I'm involved with, like the Gathering of Mighty Painters, that's been awesome. Got my High Elf army almost to a point where I can actually play a decent sized game with it. The Cowabunga challenge as well. Got my Orc army off the ground, and I'm using it and playing it. So yeah, all these things are contributing towards making these targets reachable over a certain length of time. And then you're sort of enjoying the benefits of that and actually painting with painted models. But I'd imagine that Rangers would be a bit of a nightmare for me in some ways because you've got so many different types of monsters and so many different types of characters and that kind of thing. So you got a whole spread, like it's like an RPG. You got a whole spread of different things.
Aye, I quite like that myself because always something different on the table. Although I'm definitely not averse to painting my way through a big monopose unit as well. I do like that too. So, but I collect whatever I can for Rangers and get it on, and that's part of the fun for me too. You know, when I look at the next mission and it says these are the miniatures we would recommend, and it's a guilt-free opportunity to go on a site and say, okay, I do need this thing, rather than I'm just going to mindlessly splurge some money on stuff that I don't necessarily need. So next up, I've got a couple of werewolves and that I need to do. I'm working on some like wee kids from Midlam at the moment. They're really cool. Like wee guy with a pot on his head and a wooden sword, and like a few other wee kids who I do need for a mission. So kind of like a Goonies gang, I suppose.
Sounds
fantasy
like it,
form. Yeah. As I was saying to you before as well, like when I'm painting, I've got that old white dwarf old world poster just like beside the table. So just like to sort of have a wee look at that when I'm painting away, and it throws up a lot of questions for me looking at that, like the world as it was. And like I always wonder about like where would you live in the old world? You know, if you had to pick somewhere, like is there somewhere you'd prefer to put down some roots, raise a family?
Well, I might have to be the only single giant living in the dwarven realms of Kazakh, or whatever it's called. I don't know. I'm hopeless at these names. The unpronounceable words of the Warhammer world. That's probably what I'll be ending up in. But yeah, it's a hard one actually, mate. Yeah, but I think I'll be with the dwarves. I think either in some kind of empire province, living with men and dwarves together, or going deep into the misty mountains or whatever they are, the grey mountains where the dwarves live. See, I'm hopeless at this kind of stuff. It's terrible questions you ask me, mate, because I really don't know. And
you could be like
yeah.
You could be like an Australian Felix if you found a goat trick to kick about with.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. Yeah, but I reckon, the dwarves, where the dwarves live, deep in the tunnels of their gigantic fortresses built in the mountains and that kind of thing. It must be the safest place in the old world, I'm thinking.
A lot of beer too.
Yeah, a lot of beer. Maybe they play some kind of special board game. Maybe these engineers have devised these wonderful games that people play, kind of like chess, but with different kind of races of the empire, like of the old world, on these sort of chessboards and that kind of stuff.
That'd be meta, wouldn't it? Like you're in the miniature war game, playing a miniature war game, and then somebody playing that game is like, if you were a character in this game, what would you be? And it just gets like one of the infinity mirrors. So
yeah, they could have their own version of Warhammer in the Warhammer world. You just don't know.
I don't know that. Maybe the dwarfs would be into that sort of thing. Yeah, aye. I wonder what sports like. Well, everyone plays Blood Bowl, don't they? Like every race in the Warhammer world, as far as I know. Did the Lizard Men ever have a team, or did they come too late to the...
Oh, God, I hope not. They probably
You don't like them, do you?
No, they're slimy little buggers. No, I don't like them at all, mate. No.
I love thinking about how games of Blood Bowl are organised in the world, because, like, chaos is a, like, really apocalyptic threat for the place. But then, like, if you're just a chaos team, you get invited down to Altdorf and you get to play a sporting event. Presumably your supporters come along too. So that kind of fascinates me, like... Aye, how like the authorities and that put these games together. I'd love to be in one of those meetings, just the logistics of it. Organising the stewards, the entrance money, the food at half-time. Aye, that maybe make for some sort of good, like, card game. Blood Bowl.
Actually, there was a card game, isn't there? There was a card game for Blood Bowl.
Like a Blood Bowl card game?
Yeah. Fantasy Flight did it, but I don't know if it's still around anymore. But they did, like, Blood Bowl. They did Warhammer Quest, which really interested me. I really wanted to see what that was like. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Fantasy Flight that did a card game of Blood Bowl.
Do you have a Blood Bowl team or two?
I
or
do.
three?
I do. Yeah,
What
I do.
you got?
Thanks to a good mate in Australia, I've got an Orc team that I've painted like the Auckland Raiders in like the original color schemes, and I've got a Goblin team as well with all the star players and that kind of thing in it. So that's they're the only two teams I've got, mate. How about yourself? Have you got a Blood Bowl team?
I've got nine metal beastmen from the 90s that I found and I painted up. So there's just 9 of them. So it's obviously not enough to field a team. But if I maybe get like a couple of star players or that, I don't know. Presume you need like 11 then your substitutes, I would think.
You need at least 11 plus. Well, you don't really need a substitute, but you need at least 11 guys on the pitch. So, mate, you're almost there.
Like 1997, the last time I played Blood Bowl. So the memory is hazy. But I did like it when I was wee. I did like it.
Yeah, it's a great game. Yeah, we just haven't got it to the table. I think about a year now. I think it was about 12 months, which is quite scary. The last time we played that. But I'm pretty sure for the Chaos team, all you need they're only Chaos Warriors and Beastmen anyway. So you just need 2 Chaos Warriors, mate. Just grab a couple of monopose Chaos Warriors, cut the weapons, like cut the axes off, and that's it. That's all you need. And you're right.
Yeah.
Away you go.
Aye, wee ball in their hands. I had quite a bit of gear. You know, I had the box set and everything, and my mum threw them out at some point over the years.
Yeah.
So it's just she would have thought it was like Monopoly or something.
Probably. Yeah.
You know, just a stupid kids board game. So
went
in the bin. I like the thought that maybe somebody found that and took it home, gave it a bit of TLC, but probably not. Probably got buried in the landfill.
Yeah.
So.
Well, never fear, mate. There's 100,000 of those sets around. So yeah, you're never short of like finding a Blood Bowl set complete. That's for sure.
Yeah, I suppose you always are they pretty dear on the second hand market then, or?
I have no idea. Like I said, I've got a really good mate in Australia who kindly donated a set to me, which is pretty amazing. Plus the Death Zone expansion. I just paid for the teams, and he just sent me the rules for free because he had like 4 or 5 sets of 3rd edition Blood Bowl because he was going to plan to run a tournament like type thing at his house many years ago, which never really happened. So yes, I was very, very fortunate in that one. But I would imagine that they would cost about, I don't know, $60 complete nowadays. $60 Australian, I'm talking, but it could be $60, $80.
That's not bad at all, is it?
It's not bad for the amount of value you get out of it. I mean, you're going to be playing that a lot. You're playing in leagues. If you get Death Zone, it's the best thing because you get all the extra cards and the extra rules and the extra teams, of course. You can have wizards on your team and all that kind of stuff. So it brings a whole new element to it, a much more crazy element to it. So, yeah, I think you just get just years and years of investment out of it. So.
Going back to my map, I was mentioned this to you before too. If I just proceed over that way, I always like to look at Araby. Is it Araby or Araby?
Araby, I think.
Araby. Yeah. So they never got, as far as I know, much / any miniatures. They might have got a Dogs of War. Is that right?
They did get something in Dogs of War from 5th edition. Yeah. But don't ask me what it was, mate. I don't know. But I know that they had maybe a character from Araby. It's like the Sultan guy. I think he's got like the Sultan type looking garb and that kind of thing on, and he's like got a big treasure chest on this wagon. I think he's like the paymaster or something like that. Maybe
the painmaster.
Maybe he's like a paymaster, and he's sort of
Oh, paymaster. I thought you meant painmaster, like he had hemorrhoids or something.
No. He's like the Royal Bank kind of thing. He's like funding the army and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I really have no idea about Dogs of War and what all the characters are, but I believe that was one. But I don't think they had any units, but I could be wrong. I'm sure someone's going to write in and tell us.
Listen to some of the places down that way, right, on the map. You've got just a place called Desert Raiders. You've got the Oasis of 1,001 Camels. There's a site for a battle marked there. There's a City of Thieves, so literally everyone there is a thief. Amazing that they get anything done at all, just stealing each other's stuff. Eye of the Panther. I don't know what that is, but it's just at the bottom.
It's a song title, isn't it? Eye of the
yeah,
Panther?
the Eye of the Panther. Yeah, it's like it's the B-side. You've got Land of the Assassins. Presumably everyone there is just dead, apart for the best one.
Yeah.
Eunuch Mountain. Do you think at the bottom of Eunuch Mountain there's just a pile of testicles?
Yeah, I was going to say, it reminds me of Blackadder when you say eunuchs.
Yeah. Cobra Pass. Sorcerer's Island, Land of the Dervishes, Vulture Mountain. It's a great place. I wish they'd do more there. Maybe we'll see some of that in the new game, maybe.
Well, let me pose a question to you then, when you bring up the new game there, Matthew. How excited are you about it? What's your expectations of the old world?
I will. I'll take a look at it. And who knows? But I've not got any big expectations about it at all. It would take a lot for me to get into it, especially knowing the prices that they charge for stuff, and the fact that you just get so many good games and stuff elsewhere as well. So it would take a lot. It would take a lot to tempt me over there, and I'm sure they don't care about that. They'll do fine out it anyway. But what about yourself?
I'm really surprised, that they're doing it, because I thought that it would just be so unsuccessful for them to do another Warhammer game. But, it's obviously wrong because there's such enormous hype around it. I just don't see people, investing the time in painting an army these days. But I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean, it's maybe with their, all these new quick shade paints or contrast paints they're releasing. I've got all these, whiz-wang techniques and paints they can use to get your armies painted up really, really quickly. Maybe that's the kind of approach, but I think they're still missing the beat when they should have released it on a much smaller scale. I would have really liked to have seen it in 20 mil or like Lord of the Rings, or in even smaller than that, like 15 mil, like War Master or something like that. I reckon if they released it as like a War Master type game with, had a box with an actual castle and all your siege equipment and all that kind of stuff, I probably would have been really into it. But if it's just going to be a rehash of 6th, 7th, and 8th edition, it hasn't got me really excited. But, I'll see what happens. I mean, I got A Song of Ice and Fire, which is kind of really my modern rank and flank type game. It's not Warhammer at all, but it's really got some really nice mechanics, and it's got, it's just a really good game. So it would have to be something unbelievable for me to even consider a new Warhammer in place of that, because I think what they're doing with A Song of Ice and Fire is really, be hard to beat for me anyway.
You ever played Kings of War?
No, I've never been interested in it, mate. To be honest, never been interested in any of the Mantic stuff, the models, the universe, anything. So sadly, not.
Aye, no, I'm not fussed for their really miniatures or their story world or that, but I think the rule set works really well for the Warhammer world. Like the rule set itself for Kings of War, I really liked. I think just for its simplicity. But I did hear a good episode that Nathan did on the War Games Orchard, where he went through the rules, and he's obviously got a lot of experience playing Warhammer as well, and he was saying that it is very much more balanced in terms of you could play it competitively and stuff, whereas Warhammer had a lot more randomness in it, and that was part of what made it a lot of fun.
That's what I love about it. I mean, I in another sense, Song of Ice and Fire, it's a very competitive game, which normally would turn me off completely. But there's something about the theme about that game with the characters and that kind of thing that pulls me into it. I'm sort of very, very hesitant about playing really super competitive, really balanced games. I really like I really like playing the scenarios of Warhammer. Playing with the characters and playing when the odds are really against me, kind of thing. I really love that aspect to it. So, but Easter, I can see why it would be really popular because all modern games now are all designed with a very competitive tournament-based approach to it because that's where the market is with miniature wargaming now. So it kind of makes sense in that regard. But it's just, and I've got nothing against tournaments. I mean, I'd like to actually, participate in a few tournaments if I could, more for like a social kind of a experience. I mean, I'll get my ass kicked every game. I mean, that wouldn't worry me. I mean, that's nothing new. But yeah, for more of a social experience and seeing what people bring to the table and their armies they're painted and that kind of thing, I find that much or far more interesting or satisfying than actually winning or losing.
Did you ever play much 40k, or did you prefer to use Epic and Space Marine to dive into that sandbox?
Yeah, far more into Epic. Yeah, far more into Epic. Yeah, never was a big 40k second edition player. In fact, when I worked for Games Workshop, I don't know if I told you that already, but when I got my job there, my boss Richard said, do you know how to play 40k second edition? I said, yeah, I know how to play that. Which of course I was lying about to get the job. So then when I did like a demo for some couple of kids that came to the store, I played it completely wrong, and my boss, dragged me out the back and said, "What the hell was that? What were you doing?" A lot more expletives added there, but I'll censor it for this interview. But basically he said, you just played it completely wrong. He had to show me how to play the game and that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until when I got back from the UK to Australia I actually started playing second edition 40k, and really liked it because all the guys in my my two friends that I game with were big into 40k. They did not play Warhammer, so but I still enjoy it. Like I've started playing it again, since last year or so with some orcs and that kind of thing, and really enjoying it. I mean, I still prefer Warhammer. I still prefer Epic as a scale, as a game system. But second edition is still a rocking game though.
What about games like maybe Necromunda, Talisman, Warhammer Quest? Do you ever get into any of them?
Now Talisman, I've still got my box that I bought when I was about 18. I think that's the second edition of Talisman. Still love it. I mean, I'll definitely break it out and play it whenever I can. I used to take it to, because I'm a teacher here in Japan, so I took it to the classes. This is like pre-COVID, and I used to play, even though it's like the worst game to play within like 60 minutes. You really need to play it for like 2 or 3 hours or more. But I used to bring it down for the kids to play, and we had a great time. So, and I used to play it with even my mum, back in Australia, and I just. Anybody can play it. I mean, my sister would play it. I really love Talisman for its simplicity and that anybody could play it. Anybody could just pick it up and, just roll the dice. It's all really random. It's just fun. So I really love Talisman. Warhammer Quest. Now, I did buy that when I was in the UK in '94. I do remember playing it on the mattress of our hotel we were staying at for one very brief scenario, but I never got to actually finish it. But it wasn't until recently now that I know Chris Snyder in the US, that he actually hosted a game. He's got the game and all that kind of stuff, and we had a few other guys on the Discord channel, and we actually played it remotely. So I actually got to experience it finally after all these years, and really liked it. Yeah, really enjoyed it. How about yourself, man? You played Warhammer Quest? Because I think that's kind of a game you really enjoy playing.
No, never got that. Always wanted these sort of games when I saw them in White Dwarf back in the day, but no, never got any of them. Just of that age where you're like 13 and have no money, so I never ended up picking up any of them. My pal had Hero Quest in a much earlier era, so that was our kind of dungeon crawl game back in the
Isn't
day.
it brilliant? Yeah, I
Because
love it.
Quest, was that like a successor to Talisman, is that right? Or was it a totally different game? My memory's a bit hazy of the two.
Basically, they had the Hero Quest from Milton Bradley, then they had Advanced Hero Quest from Games Workshop, and basically Warhammer Quest was its successor, like Advanced Hero Quest's successor, basically. Um, and I didn't even know until we started playing it that it's a cooperative game. I thought it was like you had like a GM running all the monsters and that kind of thing, and you had the players. It was all very adversarial, but it's not. It's like it's all cooperative. You just have a card deck and you flip the card and it'll show you what tile you have, and then you flip another card and it'll show you how many monsters are in that particular section of the tile. It's amazing. It's a really good game. So it's all done by cards. It's all generated randomly. But of course, you choose your quest first. I think you got to roll for it, and you look in the book and say, okay, this is the quest we need to do, blah 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 blah, and then you got to set your cards, and you got to choose the right cards, shuffle into the deck, and it's played that way. So then you'll eventually reach the quest room, and then you meet the big boss, and then you're going to kill him, and you claim the treasure, and you gain XP and all that kind of thing. But it's a really beautiful looking game too. The tiles are just absolutely gorgeous. The miniatures are beautiful as well. So yeah, I hope to experience that more in the future and sort of play it a bit more, because you can actually play a Chaos Warrior, which has always intrigued me. I've always loved to play like a Chaos Warrior in like a dungeon crawl game of Warhammer. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Would you be a Chaos Warrior if you were?
Absolutely,
if such
I
a
think
thing
so.
was
I think
available
either
to you
that
as
or
a
Troll
career.
Slayer. Yeah, I think either a Chaos Warrior or Troll Slayer. I think they're stuff magic, stuff bows, and that kind of thing. I want to get in there and start swinging an axe.
I'd be that monopose plastic guy. He's got his axe up and his fist clenched. I'd be him.
The Chaos Warrior, the classic one. Yeah.
I could never find confirmation of whether the Chaos Warrior's armor is like glued onto them or not, because there's mixed reports on that. With the lore. I don't know if they had to keep the armor on indefinitely, because that'd be shit going to bed at night if they go to bed.
Yeah, they maybe never sleep, mate. Maybe their armor is welded on, like you say. I don't know. You'll have to check the Realms of Chaos books for that one, I think.
Yeah, there's probably a table that you roll on to see if you get to take your armor off.
Yeah, well, those old books, and I did have them at some point, but they were fantastic. Like had all these charts and tables you just rolled to create everything. You create your whole warband doing that, just all randomly generated, like on D100s and stuff. I love all that aspect of gaming. I think that's just one of the it's not all kind of laid out in front of you kind of thing. It's like you sort of randomly generating something, you're creating something in that sense. So I like that aspect of Warhammer especially, and 40k to some extent.
What chaos god would you worship?
Well, I was really big into Khorne in the early days, and I think most people gravitated towards Khorne. But I think now I'm more of a Tzinchian guy or a Slaanesh guy now, actually. Yeah, I think maybe it's the colour choice or something about them, or they're a bit more sort of mysterious, especially the Tzinchian side of things. Khorne's all about skulls and worshipping the blood god and all that kind of stuff, and sacrifice and that kind of thing. But yeah, the Changer of Ways, which seems more interesting as a sort of chaos type of patron, and the color schemes look really interesting to me, and Slaanesh as well as purples and pinks and blacks and that kind of thing. I think for a painting kind of approach to an army for chaos, and I'll eventually do one for fantasy. I don't think I'll ever get to do one for 40k, but for fantasy, I want to do like a more of a all four of them basically have like maybe like the Beastmen of Nurgle and the Chaos Warriors of Tzinch, and have like disc riders, and Slanesh would have like these steeds and the pink horrors for Tzinch, and yeah, have like a nice. I like the idea of having all the different gods and all the different colors and aspects they bring to the army, and that's why I like Epic, because you get all that in Epic in the smaller scale, and you can do it with 28 mil. It costs an absolute fortune, especially nowadays. It's just way too expensive to do that now.
Aye, all the demons, I like it. They're a great bunch of lads. Like when you look through them all, loads of fun. I've got the old third. I get this wrong every time. Is it third edition? I always ask this. Third edition High Elves Goblins. Is that true?
That's fourth edition, mate.
Fourth. One day I'll get that right. Fourth edition. So the books, I've got the 2 books that came in that still,
nice.
and I like to look through them, and the Chaos pages. There's some brilliant like black and white drawings in there, and it takes you through all the demons and stuff like that, and really cool, really nostalgic. We wander through those books.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, there's a lot of old Hammer type art in there as well when they made that transition between the two.
Yeah,
and there's not even, well, I think there is some Mark Gibbons art in there, but there's not that much. There's a lot of like Stephen Tappan and old Paul Bonner and Tony Ackland. A lot of that stuff's in there as well. Yeah, of course, John Blanche as well. So I love that 4th edition book and those books because it has that sort of, and 2nd edition 40k too, because it's got a lot of Rogue Trader elements in there as well, a lot of Rogue Trader models and that kind of thing in those books as well. So yeah, I like that sort of transition between the two.
You maybe answered this at the very start, but do you ever dabble in non-GW rule sets at all?
Yeah, Confrontation is probably the biggest one, because it took up a decade of my life, painting and collecting the models. I never really played the games because there's no one who played it in where I was from in Australia. So, but the miniatures are so beautiful. I was so engrossed in the books and the artwork and the painting side of it's just off the charts. Like it was just nothing like I've ever seen before. So yeah, I spent a lot of time just dedicating trying to get all the right the painting styles and that kind of the French guys were doing, because it was so different. It just revolutionized painting altogether, and it sort of changed my way of looking at miniature painting totally. So yeah, I spent a long time doing that. In terms of other games, just trying to think. Oh, Infinity, of course, yeah. I can't forget old Infinity. I played that for, again, another 10 years or so. Don't play it again. I don't play it these days, but I played it for a long time. Apart from that, I don't think so, mate. Yeah. I've sort of dabbled in board games, but I found that board games kind of like it sort of got out. It was sort of brought out, once, and then it was put back on the shelf, and no one ever played it again. So I was more much of a tabletop board gamer, because it's like more of like building an army. It's like more of a hobby type based project, whereas board games are sort of like you just take it out, take all the pieces out, play the game, put it back in the box, and put it away. I like having a big scale project. Something I can see, me working on for like a year or more. So how about yourself, mate? Did you play many non-GW games back in the day? Or I know you play Rangers of Shadowdeep now. But
yeah, aye. So I didn't know anything outside of the Games Workshop extended world when I was younger, but the first game I kind of found when I got back into the hobby was a game called Open Combat, which is a small-scale miniature agnostic game. First one I really found and got really excited about. I got the book, and you're building a couple of wee war bands and just going ding-dong. There's a couple of scenarios in the book that are fun. And then it was Song of Blades and Heroes as well, which is really simple but good fun. So they 2 games I really liked, but I was kind of looking for something that had a bit more continuity and depth, so I got really into the Joe McCulloch games, Frostgrave, Stargrave, Rangers of Shadow Deep, and I just love them now. And they were a slow burn for me. Like, the first time I got the Frostgrave book, I thought, I can't see me playing this. And I don't know why, but I don't know. Maybe it looked a bit overwhelming, even though they're not hard games to learn. But they've got a real depth and longevity about them. So I'm really just really enjoying all his stuff now. So I think for the foreseeable, that's what we'll be playing. Stargrave's kind of the sci-fi version of Frostgrave. And then Rangers of Shadow Deep, that's your kind of solo / co-op version of it all, but highly narrative, lots of RPG elements and just loads of fun, especially for somebody like me. I just like collecting the best miniatures that I see, you know. What miniature companies do you tend to buy from these days, or is it all just second-hand market stuff you're dabbling in?
Pretty much, mate, yeah. It's all pretty much second-hand stuff. I'm sort of back into Rackham now, in a big way. So I really want to collect a lot of my stuff because I sold all the stuff. I had tons of stuff back in Australia, just boxes and blisters, boxes full of stuff, and I sold it all before I moved over to Japan, which in some respects I regret a lot because, of course, you know, it's hard to get nowadays. But it's one of the joys of recollecting things. It's kind of another hobby. It's kind of finding good deals on the net or through friends or things like that, and sort of piecing together your old armies that you loved. I'm sort of, I think maybe you're the same too. Like, you sort of think, okay, which things would make me the most happy in having back, and which things I don't really necessarily need or want or love anymore. So I've sort of narrowed down maybe 2 or 3 factions, especially with Warhammer 2. I think I've come to the point where I've said that's enough. I can't physically store any more stuff. I can't display any more stuff. My cabinet's at max capacity now. So, I mean, if I had more armies, I'd have this dilemma of where to put it. They'll be put in boxes or put into storage cases, which I don't really like doing. I like to display everything that I've got. So that's good. I mean, it's forming that boundary to say, okay, well, you've got enough stuff. You've got all the armies you really want to play with, and it brings you the most joy and fun in collecting and painting and playing. And now it's just a process of picking up the odds and ends that I need to complete a few of my collections and paint them up and then enjoy playing them for the rest of my years, mate. So I'm sure you're the same, mate, in that regard. You're sort of narrowing down things that really bring you the most enjoyment. Yeah,
I mean, life's too short to be ploughing your way through stuff you don't really want to be painting.
Yep.
So I'm totally with that. Yeah, I only want to be painting stuff that I'm getting enjoyment from, and then I know that I'm going to get use from a gaming point of view as well. So it's always great to chat, Josh. As we kind of approach the end of our conversation, what's next for you in terms of like the podcast, or you got any games lined up or anything like that? Any cool interviews lined up?
For gaming wise, we're gonna have because our holidays are coming up, like the summer holidays coming up here in sort of like the second week of August. So me and Paul have already been talking about what we're going to do. I think we've got a 40k second edition 40k game sort of lined up because he's got his Dark Angels painted up now. So we're going to have Dark Angels versus Chaos, I think, for that one. We're going to play some confrontation games because it's been a year since we've done that. Really looking forward to doing that. I'd really like to play some Warhammer if I can with the High Elves, because I'll have some cavalry painted up and enough stuff to do at least 2,000 points or 1,500 points easy. And he's got a Wood Elf army now, so we should really get that back on the table soon. I'd like to play some Man of War again because I really love playing Man of War. Mate, there's so many other things. There's so many projects, so many games I want to play, which is wonderful. So I can't wait to do that. In terms of the podcast, it's kind of very spontaneous. Like if something comes up or I notice somebody that I want to interview, I'll contact them and get them on the show. So yeah, that's going to happen every couple of weeks or more. I don't want to reveal any big names at all because I don't have anybody secured as yet to come onto the show, unfortunately. But we'll have lots of great guys in the community or people talking about game systems or whatever in the future. So yeah, I look forward to doing that, mate. And I've been really enjoying listening to your podcast in the meantime. So Matthew, I hope that continues long to the future, mate.
Yeah, hopefully, as long as I don't die or that, which will happen at some point, I suppose. Probably sooner rather than later, being Scottish.
Yeah. Not too soon, thank you. You're too young.
Yeah.
Mate, you got a young daughter downstairs crying for you.
Aye, and I've not earned enough to leave her a sufficient will yet. So, unless it's just a load of miniatures, which she probably just think they're cheap toys. There we go then. Big thanks to Josh. Lovely guy, great podcast. And I'm sure it won't be the last time that we get together on the old microphone to say words at each other. And yeah, I just can't stop thinking about that, like Blood Bowl logistics thing, you know, the fixtures committee, just the fact that you might have some sort of office with, like, you know, a Chaos Lord and a Necromancer. You know, you might have an Orc in there as well. And they're just, you know, sitting down with a bit of paper trying to work out who's going to play who, what cities or towns are going to host the home games, how the away fans are going to be accommodated. Even like the travel to games, like is there some sort of amnesty? You know, a bunch of dark elves, they're heading through Bretonia. And obviously that causes a bit of concern. Maybe they get confronted by the local army or militia or something like that, and they're like, look, we're athletes, we're not political, we're on our way to Sylvania, we're just going to play a game of Blood Bowl and then we'll be on our way. Isn't administration fascinating? In any case, we've arrived at the end of the episode, and as promised, I won't stay with you any longer than the duration of said episode. So just a quick shout out to our Discord channel, which continues to grow, and I love the conversations and the photos and stuff like that in there. It's just been really good to sort of keep in touch with folks, find out what folks are painting, playing and things like that as well. So you could find that at bedroombattlefields.com/Discord. Alright then, thank you very much for listening. I do appreciate your time, and we'll chat again on the next one.